The noise has been deafening this week, but can Ole Miss overcome all of that and defeat the Florida Gators and punch their ticket into the playoffs? We talked to Mike Huseman. Get your comments as well. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a tenured veteran member of the national media and former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're going to bring in After Dark Sports, Mike Farrell Sports. Mike Huseman's going to be in house for this pregame show today. We're going to talk about the Ole Miss Rebels and all the noise and everything that is going around, because this is the biggest opportunity that Ole Miss has had in 60-plus years. Ole Miss wins this game. They punch their ticket. They turn the corner. All of that is for the taking for this Ole Miss Rebels team. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast in America. Please give us a like, subscribe, and comment on your way out, and check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college and pro, is available. All right, so Mike, one thing's interesting in this game. We knew this week was going to be weird. And it has been extremely weird, but it hasn't been weird like you thought. Like when Kiffin and Auburn were flirting and dancing together, you had all this national stuff, and it felt like more. Here, it's just the Florida people. All the national people seem to be leaving it alone, and it's just the Florida people doing this over and over like it's a done deal. And I'm thinking, okay, anybody that says it's a done deal one way, don't listen to them. If anybody says it's a done deal the other way, don't listen to them. That's kind of where I am right now.
And I think a lot of it comes down to Florida's one of the teams in the conference where this season is over, more or less. That you notice the teams that are still in the playoff hunt, going to decent bowl games, they're focused on the season and the games. Florida's not like that anymore. They're looking at who their next hire is going to be, and that's where all of their news is drummed up at this point.
Yeah, and they're taking advantage of it. And the Ole Miss has their biggest opportunity since at least the 60s at this point, and probably more than the 60s at that point, because there was no individual game at that point. But this is a chance for Ole Miss to turn the corner. This is the closest that I can remember in my lifetime is the 2003 Ole Miss LSU game. Of course, that had to do a little bit with the opponent, and this has nothing to do with the opponent at all. It has to do completely with the opportunity. But before that, like the 1952 Maryland game, there's been a couple of things out there. This is rarefied air, the opportunity that the Ole Miss fandom has this week. If you've been a fan that is 65 years or younger, this is probably the biggest game in your lifetime. And this is the moment you've been waiting for your entire life. And I hate that it's been overshadowed by a lot of people spewing out noise essentially after their season's over.
And maybe that's the medium that you and I operate in, where, we're hyperactive on X, social media, hearing all these things. I do think it's real. I also think we're probably hearing way more of it than your casual fan might be too. That doesn't mean it's any less annoying or taking away from, what the key moment should be, the game. But I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And tonight, we're going to be honest, it's going to be an elite uniform matchup. If you have a chance to see this game on television, or if you're not there or in the stadium at all, Ole Miss is wearing powder blue helmets, powder blue jerseys, white pants. Florida's going orange pants, white jerseys, orange helmet. It's an elite uniform game.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I've always made that comment before with the Gators last game. When Florida plays Florida State, we usually get good uniform combos, and we're getting another good one today.
Yeah, it should be pretty good. Listen, Ole Miss's favorite, I think the line went down to 11.5 or something like that. And that's just people betting on Florida because of what happened at the end of the week, because of all the noise. They assume that this is going to be a distracted Ole Miss football team, and we'll find out in about 2 hours how true that is. But I don't think we will, because the reality of this whole situation, if you want to look at it, these players are essentially professional athletes as well, which means their perspective on loyalty and the school and the team and all that has changed over the last 5 or so years. So I don't expect them to perform any lower because the playoffs are still there. I think they're going to fight all about it. Now, what you might see is the fan base, if for some reason it gets 17-14 in the third quarter or something like that, the fan base, the stadium is going to get tight as heck. It just is.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It will get extremely tight. This is a game that Ole Miss needs to front run, like legitimately needs to front run. And honestly, they have the athletes to do it, everything to do it. Last week against Kentucky, Kentucky did not punt. And this is not an offensive juggernaut with the Kentucky Wildcats. So as long as you don't beat yourself, you should be all right against the Florida Gators.
And Florida situationally is really bad in specific areas. I mean, in breaking down this game, they're decent on defense, except their third down defense is terrible. They're 103rd in the country, and then their third down offense, they're 122 in the country. So they're bad on third downs on both sides of the ball. They're also 110th in turnovers lost. So they're spitting up the ball. They fumbled 4 times, thrown 12 interceptions so far. That's a lot.
Yeah. Why do you think that defense is so bad on third down? Because it is a talented defense. It's one of those things that they kept them in games because of what they can do. Is it a lack of pass rush? Is it injuries in the secondary? Why is this Florida defense struggling on that down?
It's probably a mix of the lack of pass rush, and they're allowing teams very manageable third downs. If you're usually really bad on third downs, whether it's O or D, it's because it's their third and longs most of the time. Well, their D's probably allowing a lot of third and shorts, so you're letting teams convert them more frequently.
All right. Remember, third segment's all about you. Whenever you leave a comment, please leave where you're commenting from. We do want to shout that out. Thank you for joining us. We have a nice community of what's going on, but me and Mike will be there to talk about some questions that you have in the third segment, and we're going to leave that up to you just like we always do. But when we have to get there first of all. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting to me to see exactly what's going on is I think this could be a big Trinidad Chambliss game, and I don't know exactly what to take from it because I don't like riding the roller coaster with Lane Kiffin on social media. You just try and read into whatever he's tweeting. Yeah. I mean, that will drive you absolutely insane. We have a guy on our Discord server that completely does that and rides the roller coaster, and respect to him, but I have no idea how you do that. But one thing I've noticed is that Joe Judge is becoming a little bit more front and center on the social media and all of that. And
interesting.
I don't know exactly what that means. It could be the fact that Joe Judge is just the quarterback coach and he has Trinidad Chambliss and they have a bunch of good quarterbacks and they realize there's a lot of eyeballs on Oxford, Mississippi, and you just kind of want people to know that you're there. So I think that's what's going on. If not, I'm going to be honest. Let's say hypothetically, all of this noise about Florida where they say he's going to announce at 2:00 tomorrow, which I would be absolutely shocked if he quit on this football team.
Not going to happen.
Yeah. But that's the rumor and the noise that's out there. If he did that, just promote Joe Judge to interim, let Pete Colding call the defense and go, because I mean, they're going to be fine that way, one way or another, because the reality is the moment that Lane Kiffin, if it happens, takes a Florida job, he is no longer going to be coaching the team on the sideline or in practice. He'll be reassigned to janitorial duties or whatever. He'll be the most expensive janitor in the history of the school until he leaves. But that's what I would do. And I'm thinking about it's like that. You have a former head coach. He was the head coach of the New York Giants. Now, he didn't win a lot of games, but he understands the administrative role of that, and you have such
He
a
does.
big apparatus that he understands as well. So yeah, it would make a little bit of sense if the worst happened.
I think that's fair. Yeah, he would make sense. I think I like your mentality. With the coordinators of you let Weiss and Golding just be the play callers. To me, Joe Judge or Joe Cox would be the logical interim head coach of that team.
Yeah, it would make sense. And the people around Ole Miss, I don't know who's reporting it, but somebody's reporting it, said that a good number of the staff doesn't want to leave. So I assume that part of that staff is Pete Golding doesn't want to leave because Golding is tied to Oxford because of his wife.
That's also your hand gets forced there because what are the odds that the next coach wants you? Probably pretty slim. Looking at the candidates we're looking at for a job like this, you're going to have your guys that have been with you for a while, and you're probably bringing them with you. So you may be now. I haven't heard it out there. I think Golding would be a decent replacement if, say, Lane does leave.
Yeah,
I'm not saying he gets the job.
Yeah,
if Pete Golding has earned the right to be a head coach in college football at this point at the FBS level.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world. But like I said, whenever it comes to this is the biggest opportunity that Ole Miss fans under 65 have had in their Rebel fandom, and we're talking about a coaching hire. I can't stand that. That's crazy. Anyway, when we come back, we will continue talking about this game. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He's Mike Huseman. I'm Stephen Willis, so stick around. It's almost the weekend. It is the weekend, actually. The game's about to start. It's time to look back one more time and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. You can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more and more money every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss delivered in a big way. He went 29 of 33 for 333 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Citadel in about a half of work. That's pretty good if you can make it happen. And with DoorDash Streaks, you can save every single Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credit. So order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive and fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, and the promo period runs through November 18th. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to, and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it helps keep all of this free. Locked On is getting ready to change the game yet again, all in the name of having fun following your team. It's all coming in December. Stick around for that. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in America. It's really cool to be a part of, and thank you very much. We would not have that if not for you. Mike, what's your thoughts on this game? How do you think this game's going to go?
Different than most. The ideal scenario you talked about where Ole Miss front runs, I think that happens in this game. I think we're looking at a multi-score game at halftime, and you can be relatively comfortable in the second half. I would guess for me, the halftime would be maybe 21-7, 17-3, something in that range where we're looking at a 10 to 14 point advantage. And then in the second half, you have to play well, but you're never really in doubt. The outcome's never really in question after that point.
Yeah, that is the best way, because I do expect that stadium to get tight if it's a close game. If it's a 1-score game in the fourth quarter, it's going to get tight, and players are going to have to make plays. And the downside when it gets tight like that is the players can feel it. You looked at what happened at South Carolina today. The South Carolina Texas A&M. I'm sorry to bring it up, but yeah, they were up 30-3 at halftime, and Shane Beamer gave up a touchdown. It was 30-10, and they drove and got into field goal range. But Shane Beamer decided to play the slot machine and go for it on 4th down, and you could feel that stadium bump. That game was lost, absolutely lost, when that field goal wasn't attempted. It doesn't matter that it would, or we don't know if they would have made it. Just attempting it would be less of a bump than Texas A&M got, because once they got going, man, they were hard to deal with.
They were, and they were getting not massively long plays, but a lot of chunk plays. They were getting 15 to 20 yard plays pretty frequently. You move down the field quick when you do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. As bad as Marcel Reed looked in the first half, it was, man, he was electric in the second half.
He was, yeah. And there's one, I also had a takeaway from that game today that's not as common, but a lot of people, myself included, we were hating on Mike Shula for the whole season. It wasn't well with him. He wasn't helping Sellers out. Sellers hasn't helped himself out either. He's made a lot of bonehead throws and not made good plays this year.
Yeah, I feel bad for the people that had to line up and gas him up in all off season. Because, Mike, I'm going to tell you something right now. My experience with Lenora Sellers was the Ole Miss game in Columbia, South Carolina. And that game could have played 8 quarters, and South Carolina wasn't scoring a touchdown.
Worst game he played last year. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my impression. Yeah. And then he wasn't any better this year, and there's been no growth and development at all. Now, part of that has to do with the fact that South Carolina hired Mike Shula.
And their O-line was so bad this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, is.
But, yeah, they're just a really bad football team right now, and we'll see exactly how that goes. We're going to halftime in the Alabama-Oklahoma game. Oklahoma's up 17-14. I'm pretty sure the kicker just looked at the holder and said laces out, by the way, on a missed field goal at the buzzer. So we got a little Ace Ventura moment. All right, when we come back, we will get into your comments, and from the looks of them, there's quite a few. So this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
Good.
He's Mike
Good,
Huseman.
like
yeah, Mike Huseman. I'm Stephen Willis. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine those live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com and sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so Mike, we're going to get into the comments section. I'm expecting a little bit to see what's up. Good grief, there's 12 of them in here. So if I don't get to everything, we got a little bit of time, but if we don't get to everything, we'll have our post-game show about 30 minutes after the end of the game. You can join for that as well. James York says, how in the world do we live in did A&M pull out that win? Oh, it's real simple. Lenora Sellers completely could not do what a quarterback needs to do, and the big weapon that South Carolina have kind of pulled up lame. If you look at the video of that long touchdown that Nick Harbor scored, he kind of pulled up a little bit. Yeah. So if you didn't have Nick Harbor, that South Carolina offense would get weird. All right, Randy Wilbanks says, hotty toddy from Walnut, Mississippi. Let's get this job done. Listen, this is the biggest game for Ole Miss fans potentially ever. It is in my lifetime because of what it can mean. If you handle business, I know all the Lane Kiffin noise that's out there. And if Ole Miss lost the game at Florida with all the noise that went on, I would literally never forgive that man for taking this moment away from me. Seriously, I'm not joking about that. I would literally never forgive him. This is an absolutely massive moment. It has nothing to do with who you're playing. It has everything to do with how you will be perceived. And getting into the playoffs turns that last corner, Mike.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Gary Grizzard says, block out all of the noise and go play Ole Miss football. That's it. You're absolutely correct on that one. it is increasingly hard to block out the noise because
it's
weird, Mike. Like I said, the only place that the noise is coming from is from Florida sources. So they're either the only ones that know, or the national media doesn't care, or they're saving for it, or it's kind of all weird, not necessarily fake news, but it's just there's wish casting, if that makes sense.
I think that's a lot of it. I think it's a lot of wishing and hoping, and we're willing this into existence by talking about it so much.
So, hope recovery. This is it. From Michael in Tennessee. My father-in-law has been a fan since he was a kid in the 60s. He had Alzheimer's and lung cancer and passed away on Thursday. Buried him today in his jersey. He says, give Florida hell. And this is the I don't think you need to discount the moment of that. You need to realize where the fan base sits and what is important to the fan base, if that makes sense, Mike.
Yeah. Sorry for your loss, Michael. That is a touching story. I like it.
Alan Hawkins says, I'm 71 and this is the game. I remember 59-62, but it was such a small kid. This is it. We must win. Yeah. You have to win this game, and you should win this game. You're a double-digit favorite. You have to help out the Florida Gators to lose this game. Joe Blackburn says, I'll give Ole Miss credit. Powder Blues may be the best in college football. Yeah, the uniform matchup for Ole Miss and Florida is going to be absolutely elite.
Yeah.
It's going to look amazing. So I'm excited to see exactly what that looks like. Alan Beck says it's a great day to be a rebel. Hotty toddy. It absolutely is. The Grove, they had to shut down traffic to the Grove early because it was so packed, and apparently it's bumping. I saw pictures of Ron DeSantis tailgating in the Grove. All of the Florida people have come up, and I'm sure it's going to be a hostile environment once you get into that stadium, but it seems like everybody's having a pretty good time in the Grove. So we'll see exactly how that happens. Alan Hawkins, this is pro mindset. Doesn't matter about coaching issues. The Rebels have everything we need. Our offense will carry us. That's what I was talking about. In the last 5 years, the mindset has changed. When in 2022, everything fell apart when the same thing happened with the Auburn coaching search and Lane Kiffin, and the Ole Miss went from 7-1 or 8-1 to finishing like 8-5 that year. This year feels completely different. They feel pretty locked in of what's going on, and that is because the playoffs it's available to them.
They're also veterans now. They went through this last year and fell short. I think they're ready to get over that hump now.
Yep. And Mary Ronaldin says, if DJ throws you the ball, catch it. Yes, absolutely. The one other game, Taylon Green. I said, Taylon Green's going to throw you the ball. You just have to catch it. Ole Miss dropped 3 interceptions and it ended up a 1-possession game at the very end in a game that you should have won by 2 or 3 touchdowns because you didn't catch interceptions. David says, I've waited many years to get back to this level. Let's make it happen. Stephen Patelis, real sad Ole Miss can't enjoy a generational run with the rumor mill going on. Yeah, it's a shame. It really is.
I don't buy it. I think you still can enjoy it. Like, to me, it's I don't know that I buy that.
Yes, but this game was supposed to be a coronation.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a culmination of that journey. And now the way it's going to be is, hey, if you win, that's going to be fantastic, but it's going to become a part of the story instead of all of the story, if that makes sense.
And I didn't mean as much just today with that run. I meant, hopefully winning the Egg Bowl, potentially a conference title game, a playoff game. Like, those are things you can enjoy still.
Yes. And honestly, if this is, it's stupid and I don't believe a bit of it. Okay. I don't, but Ole Miss wins the game tonight. They have nothing happen on Sunday and it goes in as business as usual, like I expected. That is actually a win for Ole Miss and the program.
Absolutely.
Mark Walsh says from St. Louis, let's have a great game. He can't wait. Ole Miss by 100. If Ole Miss can score 100 points in this game, I want to. Yeah, because
I'm taking Florida to cover based on his line there. Yeah.
Steven says it appears the Blue Bloods have discovered the advantages of the transfer portal, NIL, and good coaching. They've always done that. Nick Saban made a career off of that. James York from Vicksburg, Mississippi, looking for the next W, then and only then look to the next game. Can't play today, looking at the next game. You're not wrong. Honestly, you're not wrong. But with the Egg Bowl and stuff like that, that's just in the lens of, for some weird alternate reality thing where this turns out to be true, Keith Carter has to be prepared for that scenario. That's one of the things I do, Mike. And you know, I'm a planner. That's what I've always been. And I think of every possible situation, of every possible outcome. I'm never surprised, but whenever it happens, I can try and maximize it as best as possible, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
Think,
go ahead.
I also think the looking ahead part, with the bye week next week, I don't think that's an issue today. Like, it's, you know, say the Egg Bowl is next week on Friday. Okay, you might have something there. You got a long time between today and that game, though.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I'm probably going to, on Thursday, set it up to do an extra crossover with the Mississippi State people before the game, just because trying to figure out how to do content on the bye week, because they have one as well. So yeah, we'll talk ball a little bit if they want to as well. So it should be pretty good. Anyway, thank you very much, Mike. What do you got going on, bub?
Oh, not much. Just gonna try to avoid all social media involving the Gamecocks tonight and watch games. I'm very excited to watch Texas and Georgia. I think it's going to be a fun game. So I'll have that one on, Ole Miss, Florida on, and then the other, there was what was the night? There was a third game on I was going to be flipping between. Ohio State, UCLA. I think it's going to be a blowout, and Nico's not playing. But I haven't watched Ohio State play in a couple of weeks. Got to stay fresh on them because they're going to be there in the end.
Yeah, pretty good. All right. Thank you for stopping by, Mike, and we'll talk to you I guess Egg Bowl day if you're available.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that's an early game too, right?
Yeah, on a Friday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll plan on it. Yep.
All right, man. Well, take care, and we'll talk to you then, bud.
Good luck tonight, guys.
All right. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the front door of Ole Miss. If you don't believe us, search Ole Miss podcast and see how much we come up. We're like 80% of that page. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. It helps the show, and it is absolutely free. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy breaks down the best conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Hotty toddy. Remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you after the game. Take care.